How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Syracuse Aviation, and welcome back to another airport update of Syracuse Hancock International Airport. Today's is the 7th update for the month of August 2022. Since the last update, there's not been many changes. There's just been one new service that has recently been announced, but it hasn't officially started yet, so I'll explain more of that when we get to that airline. But aside from that, there's not much else to go over. It's pretty similar to last month, so if I do think of anything, I'll try and throw it in there for a little bit of extra information for you guys to make it hopefully a little bit more interesting. But without further ado, let's get started over at Gate 1. Here at Gate 1, we have a Southwest Airlines Boeing 737-800 with splits in the Heart livery. This aircraft will be heading down to Orlando today. Usually I have the Baltimore flight in here, so I thought I'd get a Florida destination in here just for fun. You can also notice behind that we have a empty jet bridge. That's actually Gate 15, which is, aside from one more thing I'll talk about later on, is the only new thing for today's airport update. It's been there since the airport has been in existence, really. It's just hasn't really been used in probably 20 years. I think the last person to operate out of there was JetBlue, but it's just been left abandoned for some reason. So I'm hoping if we get a new airline, they'll maybe fix that up and use it. They're actually planning to fix it up, as I've noted in previous updates, just no airline has been there yet. So anyways, getting back to the Southwest 738 here. Once again at Gate 1, preparing for a flight down to Orlando today. Still a once-weekly service. Hopefully it gets upgraded to maybe a daily. 700 would be really good to compete with some of the other airlines we have with service to Orlando. So Baltimore and Tampa still going pretty well. Tampa is kind of your little clue for the next thing I was going to talk about with the new airline here, so be prepared for that. Next up here at Gate 3, we have a JetBlue Airways Airbus A320 with fence tips and the spotlight tail. This aircraft will be heading out to Boston Logan today, filling in for an Embraer 190. I'm pretty sure we could all use a re-release from Gemini Jets of the JetBlue Embraer 190. It's a very useful aircraft, especially in upstate New York. As you guys probably know, Buffalo, Rochester, Albany, and Syracuse all get the Embraer 190s for JetBlue. They mostly fly Boston and JFK, so yeah, it'd be really great to have a re-release. I think they only did the barcode tail and the blueprint tail, so I'd rather have a barcode, but obviously it's just they're so uncommon, it'd be hard to get one, so I'm hoping that we get a re-release in any livery. Would be really nice. Most of us could probably use them because they go literally everywhere. Also regarding the Spirit JetBlue proposed merger, I don't know if it's actually going to happen. I don't know if it's been certified or whatever they're going to do. I don't know if it's actually happening. I think there's a pretty good chance it may have actually already been confirmed at this point, so I apologize if I'm just way behind. If it does happen, I could definitely see expansions out of lots of airports, including the upstate New York airports, so I think Syracuse could do very well with Fort Lauderdale. Albany and Buffalo both have it on the A320, which is a once daily, and they both do really well. Syracuse actually had this route back in early 2000s, and I guess it just wasn't profitable. I think 20 years later, I think it definitely would be profitable. Very high demand for Florida cities, and the only airline we have doing the Fort Lauderdale service currently is Allegiant, and it's a limited service, so I could definitely see Fort Lauderdale coming. Hopefully it works out. We'll have to wait and see. I could also see Los Angeles being something they could try to work out, because that's where the airport actually did a study recently, and all of the data shows the West Coast is where the demand is, and there's not really a whole lot of service to the West Coast. We just have Breeze to Las Vegas, which is still pretty good, but we could do with San Francisco, maybe on United or Breeze. We'll see. Even Phoenix, I think there's a lot of demand for, so American Airlines could do that, or even Breeze, but we'll have to see. So, yeah, once again, getting back on track now, we have the JetBlue A320 filling in for an Embraer 190 with service to Boston. Next up at Gate 5, we have a American Eagle CRJ-700. This aircraft will be heading out to Washington, D.C.A. Now, some information about this aircraft. The DCA flight, this one, this is the only frequency, or the only flight, I should say, that actually takes place out of Gate 5. As I've mentioned in previous updates, it's just the one DCA turn, which was on an A319. Now, they downgraded it to an Embraer 175, which I am pretty, I'm not very happy about that, but they did add more frequencies, I think, with Embraer 175, so it's still really the same number of passengers, just more oftentimes per day on a smaller aircraft, which I guess it's not the worst thing in the world. It's just going to fill up gates even faster, which is going to lead to a need for an expansion even sooner. So we're going to have to see what happens there if this keeps happening with other airlines or more services are added. So we'll see about that. But yeah, looking pretty good here for DCA. Just 175s for the most part, regional jets. So, not really a whole lot of anything too special. So I hope we get some A319s again in the future. We're going to have to see. So, yeah, once again, the American Eagle CRJ700. This should be an Embraer 175. But, yeah, this aircraft will be heading out to Washington, DCA here from Gate 5. Next up here at Gate 6, we have once again another American Eagle CRJ700. This aircraft will be heading out to Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia has actually been upgraded a little bit. It used to be 145s for the most part, and as of recent, there's still a couple 145s, but it's only once or twice per day from what I've seen, as well as CRJ 900s and 700s. So Philadelphia has actually got a pretty good amount of demand for American, probably just because American's the only airline serving Philadelphia from Syracuse. So American's definitely doing some pretty good, they're getting some pretty good revenue here for Philadelphia, just because there's a decent amount of demand from Syracuse. So it's great to see that they're doing well with Philadelphia. Hopefully we get some upgrades in the future. The Embraer 175s I think would be really cool. Maybe 4 daily on that would actually be pretty awesome, I think. So, but again, as I said in the previous clip, I'd probably rather have smaller aircraft but more frequencies, to be honest. As long as we get mainline, which we still will from the low-cost carriers because they really only operate mainline jets, I don't really care what happens with the rest as long as there's, a fair amount of passengers flying that route. So, yeah, once again, the American CRJ700 here at Gate 6 will be heading out to Philadelphia. Next up for American, here at Gate 8, we have an American Airlines Boeing 737-800 with the winglet logo. This aircraft will be heading out to Charlotte today. Charlotte's been 3 daily mainline jets, so what they'll do is they'll have a 12:25 a.m. Ish arrival on the 738. Then we'll have one later on in the morning around 10 to 11 a.m. on the 738, and then they'll have another one later in the day on the A320. So Charlotte's been pretty good. The loads are actually pretty decent, and they've been doing really well. Obviously, 3 daily mainline jets for a city like that is obviously pretty good, but they are an American hub, so it's mostly just connections, I'm thinking, but probably there is a lot of demand for Charlotte as well, so it's kind of a mix of those two factors. So Charlotte's been doing really well. I'd really like to see Dallas be upgraded to a 738. They've actually been completely full on a lot of these Dallas flights on the A319. It's still a once daily A319 for Dallas, so I definitely think we could do a lot better than that. Maybe a little bit more advertising, and then we could probably start using some 738s. The thing is, the 738 isn't really that efficient for a longer flight like that, so I think that's why they're using the A319, is because it's a lot more efficient for that kind of a service. So I think if they get more MAX 8s, we could start to see some American 737 MAX 8s for Dallas, which would be really cool. I'm not really sure if they fly to Dallas that much. We'll have to see kind of how the future goes, and maybe that will kind of alter the course of things here at Syracuse for the Dallas flight. But yeah, Charlotte's looking pretty good. Once again, that is 3 daily flights on mainline jets, so the 738s for the first 2 flights, and then a A320 for the later in the day flight. So definitely great to see American Airlines here at Syracuse doing well with Charlotte and Dallas both. I'm not really representing Dallas in today's update. I just thought I'd go off on a little tangent. There's another destination I was going to talk about. So Phoenix doesn't occur. It's not really a flight out of Syracuse. Definitely would do well, as I mentioned earlier. I think maybe I talked about this. I think with the Gate 5 and the American CRJ700, I was talking about how they could fit in a Phoenix flight there. We'll have to see. Just would be one more American mainline service here, another frequency, which would fill up more gates even quicker. So we'll have to see how that goes. Breeze Airways could also do something now that they're at Phoenix, so I'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, once again, here at Gate 8, we have the American 737-800 heading out to Charlotte. Next up for American, here at Gate 9, we have this Embraer 175 with enhanced winglets, once again for American Eagle. This aircraft will be heading out to Chicago O'Hare today. Chicago O'Hare, I believe, is the most flown route out of Syracuse, and I think it may be the same way for Buffalo, Rochester, and Albany as well. I could be wrong on that, and if it's not the most flown, it's at least like the top 3 or 2 probably. So it's really interesting for that to be the case. I guess I'm not really surprised though. So we have American and United both flying this service. Now United has a lot of mainline on this route between the A319s and the A320s. Sometimes the 737-900s, I think that's actually what they use on the evening flight is the 739. Sometimes the MAX 9 flies into Syracuse as well. We're actually getting one tonight, which is pretty interesting. So hopefully that trend continues for United, but we're not really here to talk about United. We're here to talk about American. So American is just regional jets for Chicago, which is kind of unfortunate. I would think there would be a little bit more demand for some mainline jets, but I suppose maybe United having a bigger presence in Chicago is somehow able to fill up their planes a little bit more. Maybe that's why they're using mainline and American isn't. I don't really know, but I think that seems pretty logical. So hopefully we see some American mainline into Chicago in the future. Maybe the 738 or the A319 or A320 would be pretty cool. So we'll have to see how this route continues to expand and grow. Hopefully it grows pretty quickly and we can start seeing some upgrades or maybe frequency increases. So we'll have to see. But once again, nevertheless, we have this beautiful American Eagle Embraer 175 with enhanced winglets once again here at Gate 9, heading out to Chicago O'Hare. The final American Airlines aircraft for today's Syracuse update is currently sitting here at Gate 10, so we have the American Eagle ERJ-145. This aircraft will be heading out to Boston today. Now, kind of like what I said in the last updates, Boston's loads aren't too good because, well, it's not that they can't fill up the 145, it's just that there's not a whole lot of demand for a larger plane because of JetBlue's service on the Embraer 190, so JetBlue's kind of been crushing American with their loads to Boston, which kind of makes sense. Delta used to operate Boston out of Syracuse, and then American kind of took over, so I don't really know. I think Delta operated the 175 maybe for a period of time, so I'm kind of thinking Delta may have done a better job, but I could be wrong on that. But I don't know why else the loads would be less with American than they were with Delta, so it's definitely interesting though. I'm kind of thinking it's only going to get worse for American from here. I could be wrong on this, but with the potential Spirit and JetBlue merger, if JetBlue continues to expand, they may even fly the A320 into here in the coming years. I probably am wrong on that. It'll probably take a while, but I could see it happening eventually. And if that happens, then American is kind of screwed over if JetBlue continues to kill the service. So yeah, JetBlue's been doing really well. It's unfortunate that I can't include them in the updates for Boston, but maybe I can someday. So it's at least good to have American represented here flying to Boston. So yeah, once again, here at Gate 10, we have the American Eagle ERJ-145, and this aircraft will be heading out to the Boston Logan International Airport. Getting into our only Allegiant aircraft for today's update, here at Gate 11, we have the Allegiant Air Airbus A319 in the new livery with fence tips, of course. This aircraft will be heading out to Myrtle Beach today. Myrtle Beach has been A320s and A319s. Allegiant doesn't really have a consistent aircraft operating any flights out of Syracuse anymore. It's just kind of whatever seems to be available. So it's kind of hit or miss depending on really kind of what order the aircraft have been flying in. So as far as loads, Myrtle Beach has been pretty good. It hasn't been like completely full on every flight, but it's enough to sustain consistent service, which has been good to see. There's not really a whole lot else to mention. Still hoping that Allegiant expands out of Syracuse even more. I would love to see that. Maybe Destin or Provo, as I've probably mentioned in the past, even Savannah, but Breeze will probably do Savannah before Allegiant does. So yeah, just kind of always thinking about potential route expansions out of Syracuse. So kind of pipe dreams at this point, I guess you could say. So once again, at Gate 11, the Allegiant Air A319 in a new livery, heading out to Myrtle Beach. Next up here at Gate 12, we have the Breeze Airways Airbus A220-300. The first thing I want to mention for Breeze is that they have announced a new seating chart, so they're doing more of the extra legroom seats, but less of the first class seats. So pretty interesting to see what they're doing there. I think they're just trying to increase the loads and make it a little bit more efficient, for lack of a better word. So those are going to be flying a couple of routes to begin with. They're not going to convert them all at once, of course. It's going to kind of be a slow adjustment over time. So that'll be interesting to see. One of them will be coming to Syracuse for one of those, destinations that they operate that aircraft on, which will be Tampa, which leads me into my next talking point here. So Breeze Airways has announced service to Tampa from Syracuse starting in November. It'll be a year-round service once a week with a couple twice-a-week services in the popular demand seasons. So that'll be a year-round service, as I said, on the A220-300, which will be the new configuration. So I'm very excited for that. So today, just for this update, we have the A220 that arrived in from Charleston, and I'll be heading out to Las Vegas. So that's kind of the turn it does at Syracuse. It'll come in from Charleston, go out to Las Vegas, then come back to Syracuse and go out to Charleston. So it's kind of an interesting little mix-up they do there, but it gets the job done. It's honestly a pretty cool way to do it, I think. So we'll have to see what Breeze does in the future with expansions. I'm hoping that they do Provo, as I've probably mentioned in the past as well. And I thought about this one last night, Phoenix. Now that they're at Phoenix, they could do Phoenix to Syracuse, because a lot of our demand has been showing West Coast. Actually, now that I'm thinking, I actually gave this whole little spiel earlier in today's video, so I apologize. But I definitely think they can make Phoenix work, as well as San Francisco. So we'll have to see what they do. Would love to see more Breeze expansions. I think they've probably expanded out of Syracuse faster than any other airline at Syracuse, at least for a long time. So we'll have to see what they do. I'm very excited for the future for Breeze Airways at Syracuse. So once again, at Gate 12, the Breeze Airways A220-300, heading out to Las Vegas after an arrival from Charleston. And before we get into the Bravo Concourse, I figured it'd be nice to give you guys a little bird's eye view of the Alpha Concourse. So you have the Southwest, JetBlue, then the whole American Airlines section there on the end with the Allegiant and the Breeze. So this all looks very nice. Hopefully we'll see some more color in here in the future, maybe a new airline, but we'll have to see. Gate 26 is currently empty. I do have an aircraft on order that I think I probably made note of in the last update too. It's just taking a little bit longer to get here, unfortunately. Hopefully I'll have that here soon and we'll be able to get Gate 26 up and running. Getting into our Delta section now, here at Gate 25, we have a Delta Connection CRJ 900. This aircraft will be heading out to Detroit today. So Detroit's still been on the CRJs, so it's, at this point, they've actually downgraded this one a little bit. So it's not in terms of frequency, but just in terms of aircraft. So it's 2 CRJ 700s and 2 CRJ 900s a day. So it's kind of interesting to see what they've done there. Obviously, just trying to choose a more economical aircraft for what the loads are, you know, kind of how they're performing, so I guess it makes sense, although it is kind of unfortunate. On the plus side, though, it does give us more variety here at Syracuse to be seeing some Delta CRJ 700s rather than just the 900s, so I'm not really going to complain about it. It is what it is. Detroit's not really one of those super high-demand cities. It's more just a connection hub for Delta, so yeah, for Detroit, looking pretty decent here at Gate 25 this one is. Getting into our 2 aircraft here at Gate 24, and yes, you did hear that correctly, there are 2 aircraft parked at the same gate. Check out the previous Syracuse Airport update for more information on that. Anywho, the first aircraft is the Delta CRJ 900, or the Delta Connection more specifically, CRJ 900. This aircraft will be heading out to New York JFK today. JFK is kind of a similar situation to what has been going on with the Boston service on American and JetBlue. The 2 legacy carriers are kind of been given a run for their money by JetBlue Airways having service on the Embraer 190s. I guess people just, maybe the fares are a little bit better, I don't really know, or maybe the times of the day. But Delta does have more flexibility for the times that they serve this flight compared to JetBlue, but I guess it just depends on the passenger's preference. So yeah, once again, the Delta CRJ 900 heading out to New York JFK today has been CRJ 900s for every flight, so that's been good to see for New York JFK. The second aircraft here at Gate 24, this time with the jet bridge attached, is the Delta Airlines Airbus A319, filling in for an Airbus A320 with service to Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. I believe before the pandemic, this was going to be upgraded to an A321. Now, of course, the pandemic screwed a lot of things over, including this. So hopefully, given maybe a couple of years, we'll see this upgraded to an A321, at least for one of the frequencies of the day. Maybe they could do an A321 for the late night arrival and early morning departure, kind of like what American's been doing. And I guess United for that matter as well, with the 739 to Chicago. So it kind of depends on how the other services do. It depends on, it's kind of like Detroit. Atlanta does have a lot of demand for the city itself, but it's also a connection city for a lot of flights. So we'll have to see what happens. Maybe if they downgrade some other services, they'll have more demand to Atlanta. We'll have to see what happens, but regardless, it's been good to see the A320 operated 3 times a day out of Syracuse. Hopefully that grows in the future. All of these frequencies have been operated out of Gate 24. You may remember they used to be operated out of Gate 23. That kind of, for some reason, was put to an end, so it doesn't really matter, though. As long as we're getting the Delta mainline, I'm pretty happy. So once again, the Delta A319 here, not the A320. The A319 filling in for an A320 with service to Atlanta today. And here at Gate 23, our last Delta Airlines aircraft for today's Syracuse update is the Delta Connection CRJ-900. Once again, sitting here at Gate 23, getting the passengers on, and this aircraft will head out to New York LaGuardia. New York LaGuardia has seen a couple of CRJ-700s, but it's not really a consistent schedule. It just kind of depends on, like, there's certain days that maybe we'll have a few less passengers, so they figure they'll just send a 700 to accommodate for that amount of passengers flying the route that day. So it is consistently CRJ-900s, just with a couple downgrades every now and then, which is perfectly fine with me. So not really a whole lot else to say with New York LaGuardia. There's not really any competition. It's just, JFK and Newark maybe the only logical competition. Once again with JetBlue for JFK and then United to Newark. But aside from that, there's not really any competition, so it's just Delta doing their thing for New York LaGuardia. So once again at Gate 23, the Delta Connection CRJ-900 heading out to New York LaGuardia. Getting into our small United Airlines section for today's update here at Gate 22, which is a hard stand as you guys can see, is a United Express CRJ-550 currently filling in for a CRJ-700 with service to Newark Liberty International Airport. Newark has been a mix of CRJ-700s, Embraer 170s, and Embraer 175s. Hopefully we'll see some upgrades. I do believe that in December, United is going to fly the 737-700 on this route. I'm not sure if it's going to be every frequency or if it's just going to be like the late night arrival and early morning departure, just like American does. We'll have to see what happens. It'd be cool if that goes year round though. I would love to see more mainline as always, especially on a short hop like Newark. It would kind of remind me of what Southwest does with Baltimore. With the 737 in that sense, with kind of a shorter flight like that. So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully Newark continues to grow and hopefully Syracuse continues to grow. Then maybe that'll be a little bit more realistic here in the next few years. So once again, here at Gate 22, we have the CRJ-550 filling in for a CRJ-700 with service to Newark. Our final United Airlines aircraft for today's update here at Gate 21 is the United Airlines Boeing 737-900 in the Eva Blue livery. This aircraft will be heading out to Chicago O'Hare today. Fun fact, here at Gate 21 a couple days ago, there was a fuel spill, so a lot of the aircraft that were going to park here at Gate 21 had to go elsewhere. I did forget to include that in today's update. I wish I could have represented that in some way, but I figured this is the least I can do, just give a little bit of information or a backstory. So figured that would be interesting to put in here. So, but getting back on topic now with United Airlines to Chicago O'Hare has been 739s, A319s, and A320s. So it's maybe inconsistent, but at least they're sticking with those three aircraft. But we'll have to see what happens with Chicago in the future. Again, it's not like American where it's all regional jets. United is kind of dominating the Chicago service, which has been pretty good to see, so hopefully they continue to grow for Chicago O'Hare, maybe get a consistent upgrade to the 739. So, once again at Gate 21, the United 739 heading out to Chicago O'Hare. And some pretty unfortunate news regarding Frontier Airlines at Syracuse. We did lose 3 services, so we lost Miami, Fort Myers, and Tampa. So these were all really cool destinations for Frontier to operate out of Syracuse. The reason being is lack of pilots, I believe. Now, I think Syracuse was one of 43 airports in the United States to lose a bunch of service with Frontier. They are still here at Syracuse. We have 4 daily flights, 4 weekly flights at this point for Raleigh-Durham, Denver, and Orlando, which is still pretty good. They all take place in the same day, which is pretty interesting. So if you go on any of those 4 days, you'll see 3 Frontier flights operate. So these are all winter flights, regarding Fort Myers, Tampa, and Miami. So they will not be happening this winter. Thankfully, Breeze has picked up the Tampa one, so I'm hoping that they do the same with Fort Myers, and obviously there's not really a whole lot they can do with Miami. So I mean, they could go to Miami, but I kind of doubt it, at least for now. So we'll have to see what happens. Hopefully we get Fort Myers back with Breeze. Maybe it would even be year-round, which would be better than Frontier seasonal service, so we'll have to see what happens. But this particular aircraft in front of us here at Gate 20 in the Griswold Bear livery, the A320 with Sharklets and CFM engines, will be heading out to Denver today. Denver has been a lot of A321s. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen a very large number of A321s operating to Denver. I've seen A321s for Orlando and Raleigh-Durham as well. You wouldn't think Raleigh-Durham would have really enough demand for the A321, but I guess there's a couple occasions where they do need to send an A321. Maybe it's not necessarily for passenger demand, maybe it's just for some other reason, like the aircraft got swapped out and, you know, the only one that was available was an A321. I don't really know. It's definitely interesting though, so hopefully the trend of a few A321s, you know, continues to occur at Syracuse. That'd be really awesome. So hopefully Frontier brings back these destinations that we lost. I think they completely pulled out of Albany, or you know they're planning to in October. So that's very interesting to see. I feel bad for the guys over at Albany. I know how it feels to lose air service like that. It's really kind of demotivating when you thought your airport was doing so well and then an airline pulls out. But it's not necessarily their fault. It's just the lack of pilots. So I'm confident that once Frontier gets a lot of pilots back, they'll be able to operate all these services that they have suspended. I know Buffalo and Rochester also lost services, so F in the chat for those guys as well. So it's just tough times over at Frontier Airlines right now. Hopefully this is just a temporary thing, but we'll have to see what happens. So very unfortunate there. But once again, nevertheless, here at Gate 20, we have the Frontier A320 in the Griswold to Beartail. This aircraft will be heading out to Denver today. So here's kind of an overall look at the B concourse while I do the outro here. So as you guys can see, there's a few little changes happening at the airport over the past month. The Frontier flight loss is kind of the one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, but thankfully I remembered it. It's not really something you want to include, but you kind of have to if you want to really pack in as much information as you can. So again, it's nothing really the airport could do. It's just Frontier's kind of having some tough times at the moment, I guess. So with that and Breeze announcing Tampa, some pretty interesting stuff happening. Definitely a lot of stuff to pay attention to. You know, always looking at the flight schedule is, you know, kind of what I do in my free time and kind of seeing what the airlines are doing here. So the airport is also trying to find a new place for the parking garage. This is something it's not really something you can include in the update too easily because it's, I mean, if I wanted to, I could represent the parking garage, but I'm kind of running out of space at the moment. So hopefully in the future I can get a really nice model of the airport going and maybe I can start to include stuff like that. But it sounds like the parking garage at the current time is 37 years old, I believe. They want to completely rebuild it. I think even in a different area than it is right now so that they can open up the nice curtain wall in the front of the terminal and get, you know, a ton of natural lighting in, because the front of the airport is really beautiful, and so to have the parking garage there in the way to block it is kind of unfortunate. So it looks like they want to rebuild the parking garage as well as expand it because they are having parking issues along with most other airports in the United States right now. So we'll see what they do. Hopefully in the next couple of years we can see that. Hopefully we have some more gates added. There's always a lot of things that I forget to mention that hopefully I try to remember in the coming updates. So I'll see what I can do. Maybe I can start writing stuff down on a piece of paper. Would probably be the most logical thing to do. So with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's update. Once again, this was the August 2022 update for Syracuse. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.